Former President Trump fighting a political battle on multiple fronts. The Republican frontrunner expected to appeal both Colorado and Maine ballot decisions this Tuesday.
And with pending lawsuits in more than a dozen states that are attempting to remove Trump from the ballot, the Supreme Court faces mounting pressure to make the definitive ruling ahead of the election.
We've got constitutional law attorney Mark Smith here to react. Good morning, Mark. We were just talking on the couch here that if this goes all the way to the Supreme Court, which we don't see why it wouldn't, there's kind of two issues at play here. One being an interpretation of the clause, and the other being, was President Trump even guilty of insurrection to begin with? Can someone make that determination on their own in order to invoke this clause?
Yeah, that's right. The first thing to understand, though, it's very interesting that both out of Colorado and Maine, you really have what are political statements more than legal documents. Keep in mind that the Colorado Supreme Court in that 4-3 decision said that, yes, Donald Trump is essentially an insurrectionist and should not be on the ballot. But then they allow him on the ballot for the moment in Colorado. And that's going to remain the case unless the Supreme Court acts. And if they don't act, he will remain on the primary ballot in Colorado. In Maine, the same concept applied here. The Secretary of State of Maine says, hey, I think Donald Trump's an insurrectionist and is not eligible to be on the ballot, but I'm not going to effectuate my decision. I'm going to wait until January until a Maine Superior Court makes a decision to either agree with me or disagree with me. So right now, these look to be a lot more like political statements than real legal binding documents. But only time will tell as to what the Supreme Court does, because technically speaking, the Supreme Court for the moment doesn't have to do anything, and Donald Trump will remain on the ballot.
So, Mark, in order to be accused of inciting an insurrection, there has to have been an insurrection. And there's still a lot of evidence that hasn't come out. Mark Johnson hasn't released all the videotapes. The more videotapes come out, the less it looks like there was really an insurrection, and there appears to be other actors involved and things. So will this in some way necessitate us putting to rest the idea that there actually was an insurrection before anyone could even attempt to, take someone off a ballot for inciting one?
Yeah, those are great points. The 14th Amendment talks about an insurrection, but there's a lot of legal hurdles that the Democrats really need to overcome before Donald Trump could conceivably be disqualified. The first is, keep in mind that Donald Trump has essentially already been tried and found innocent, acquitted, involving his alleged role in an alleged insurrection, because he was impeached in January 2021, and he was acquitted, and he was impeached specifically for allegedly engaging in an insurrection. So in one sense, he's already won the question as to whether or not he was involved in the insurrection, and he was found not to have been so. The second thing is, it's pretty clear that a hyper-partisan Department of Justice run in this context by Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, has been very aggressive in charging not just President Trump, but anyone touching fingers with January 6th with all sorts of crazy crimes, some of which are now up on before the Supreme Court. So if anyone had an incentive and basis for indicting President Trump to be associated with an insurrection or engaging in insurrection, it would be Jack Smith, and he did not do that, which tells us quite a bit about how serious this is, which really, it's not serious at all. These are really political maneuvers by the Democrats to do one of two things: either knock Donald Trump off the ballots with a Hail Mary pass in the court system, allowing the courts to decide who the Republican winner is and not the Republican voters, or alternatively, to make the U.S. Supreme Court look partisan and bad, which is part of another agenda of the Democrats, which is essentially to embarrass the Supreme Court and try to get Supreme Court reform so they can pack the court with liberal judicial activists.
Makes sense. Real quick, Mark, if it were to get to the Supreme Court, what does that decision look like? Joey and I were kind of discussing, could this be the kind of decision that's a 9-0 or an 8-1, or would it be split?
No, I think the ultimate decision will be 9-0 that Donald Trump is eligible to be the president of the United States, and that the 14th Amendment does not get in his way in any respect. However, I do see the three quote-unquote liberal justices on the Supreme Court writing a concurring opinion that really land-based Donald Trump and says all sorts of negative things about Donald Trump as a political statement. But at the end of the day, on the law, I think it'll be 9-0 in favor of President Trump.
There you go. Mark Smith, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Mark.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.